So you
Uh,
talked about the negative and positive charges, which is really interesting. So in a cellular inside of, say, just any cell, usually have an inner and outer wall. Is the easy water pushing the protons uh, out to the outer cell wall so that it gets that division?
yes. So what happens? Um, I guess I've thought mostly about animal cells or humans rather than plants, but I think the principle is going to be the same. So, so what happens with us is we start with water, which is neutral. Now, the water transitions into easy water, which typically is negative. And what about what happens to the positive? You might think, well, they're just outside the cell, and basically there is, because the cell is negatively charged. This is true in animal cells as well as plant cells. Plant cells are typically minus 100, minus 150 millivolts. Animal cells, not quite so negative. And so your question is, well, what happens to the positive charges? Well, in animals, first well, let me put it another way. Every time um, you breathe out carbon dioxide and you breathe out water. Water plus CO2 gives you carbonic acid, H2CO3. Carbonic acid, it's got lots of protons, it's an acid. And so those protons get exhaled. So with each breath, each exhalation, you get rid of protons, you get rid of positive charges, and we remain negatively charged. So it's not, and the plants as well as the animals, this is true. So what you have inside the cell is you've got a lot of negative charges, and that I argue, contrary to prevailing views, which deal with channels and pumps, it's the negative charge of the easy water. I have argued, which is responsible for the electrical potential of the cell. Um, and I believe that's true. And if you want evidence, I can talk about it. So that's the reason our cells and plant cells are negative. Now, where does the energy come from? Well, if you got a cell that's filled with negative charges, you ask the question, well, what do negative charges want to do? They want to get away from each other, right? They repel. And that that proclivity for those charges to escape from one another, that's potential energy. Um, you've squeezed all the negative charges together, and they want to separate because they repel. So the fact that they're squeezed together inside the cell, that is the energy we're talking about. Um, it's potential energy, and it's important for the plant and important for animals.